Yeah, we're live. Yes. So for those of you that are going to be joining in the chat soon, or whatever, because I just posted the link like a few seconds ago, so they're probably missing this first few moments. I do have my updated rankings. Obviously, we're moving forward with the season. I just found out in the hallway that a bunch of executives and possibly players tested positive for the Tennessee Titans. Yeah.
That's saving my other league because I was playing Henry.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sick because he's on my team.
Yeah. Well, again, we're gonna rely on whatever ESPN decides. That's usually my go-to move as a commissioner. Whatever ESPN decides, that's what we're gonna go with. Like for example, with fantasy baseball was wrecked this year because they're only gonna play 60 games. So we played like a 7-game regular season, or it was like every game was like a week, and then like the playoffs, and it was like the shortest season ever. But I just missed the playoffs by like a half a game because we do categories, we do 12 categories, and you could tie, So 10. Yeah, they're most of the teachers. So let's bring this around. Let me do this. Now, what I'm going to show you in a moment is the season by season stolen base highs. The annual stolen base leader per league. Because what I want to show you is specifically the last few years. Look at this list. This is the American League stolen base leaders for each of the last few seasons. What would you say? Now, obviously, you can't count 2020 because they only played 60 games. You can't count 2020. But if you look at the other seasons, what would you say a league leader would have to average? 35, maybe 40, maybe more, who knows, but average, probably 35, 40. Now, if you go to the National League, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more in the last few seasons. Oh, there we go. What would you say? 45, 50? Yeah. Well, in 2020, so I'm ignoring 2020. Yeah, don't count 2020. But looking at the other seasons, they all played 162 games. But yeah, if you want to be one of the top base stealers in the league, at a bare minimum, maybe you got to steal, 50 bases? Yeah, that's fair.
He got caught cheating.
Oh, we did? Nice.
I mean, before that, when he was on the Dodgers.
I gotcha. Now, here's the thing. A very good major league career might last you 20 years. You last 20 years in the league, yeah, that's a really long time. If you're going to be a base runner, what kind of athletic attributes do you need to have? You got to have speed. You got to not get injured. If you're going to be a base stealer for 20 years, wouldn't you agree that your skill should deteriorate over time? All sports.
Your athletics, yes, but you get better at reading the pitcher, knowing when it's coming.
It's very true. You might have like raw speed at a young age, and then you might have higher skill acumen at an older age. So here's the thing. If you're going to steal 50 bases a year, meaning your speed is going to remain for 20 years. Somebody do the calculation for me. Hold on. If you're going to steal 50 bases a year for 20 years, how many stolen bases would that be over the course of your career? Say again? 1,000. That would be 1,000 stolen bases over a career. Now, let's go a little bit farther. Hold on. Oh. I did. What if you lasted 25 years? 25 years, how many stolen bases is that? 1,250. 1,250 stolen bases. Like, holy crap. Not only are you lasting in the major leagues 25 years, which, by the way, most people get into the major leagues when they're like, 24, 25 years old. So you start when you're 25, you play until you're 50. and you steal 50 bases a year, meaning you're at the top of the list every single year for your entire career. That seems like impossible. Now, mind you, 1,250, and you ask the question, who's the all-time leader? Hold on, don't say anything. Hold on. Remember that number, 1,250. That is an incredible career. 25 years, 50 bases a year. "25 years. He played for 25 years. He played from 1979 to 2003. Rickey Henderson is an anomaly. Now, somebody do this calculation for me. How many stolen bases does he have more than Lou Brock? How many stolen bases does he have more than Lou Brock? Some of you have like calculators on my phone or your computer. Say again? 468. He has 468 more stolen bases than Lou Brock. This is crazy. 468 more stolen bases than Lou Brock. If Rickey Henderson only had 468 stolen bases, he would still be top 50 all time. That is insane. That is insane. Rickey Henderson is an anomaly unto itself. Now, I have various things that I want to show you on Rickey Henderson and how just good he was. But let's just kind of go to his stat sheet real quick. Here we go. Now, first of all, Rickey Henderson, you go to his thing right here. I want to show you all the teams he played for. There it is, 1979 to 2003. He played for the Oakland A's, then he played for the Yankees, then he played for the A's. When he played for the A's, the second time he won a World Series in '89. Oh, this one? Oh, we will. You'll get there. You'll get there. Shut up. Anyway, so he won a World Series with the Athletics in '89. And then in '93, he got traded for the Blue Jays for the second half of the season, won another World Series. Went back to the A's, to the Padres, to the Angels, to the Athletics, to the Mets, to the Mariners, to the Padres, to the Red Sox, to the Dodgers. Different teams found value in him because stealing a base puts you into scoring position. You steal second base, you could potentially get knocked. A run could be, you could score the run if somebody hits the ball into the outfield and drops for a double or whatever. If you're on third base, you could score with a hit or you could score with a sac fly or whatever. Rickey Henderson was a master of stealing second. He was a master of stealing third. He even stole home. But exactly how difficult is it to steal a base? How much time does a runner have? Because I want you to think about this for a minute. We're going to outline this in our notes in a few minutes. The runner is running from first base to second base. How many feet is that? 90 feet. But they do get a little bit of a lead, right? We're going to talk about that in our calculations. He has to run to second base. The pitcher, in a perfect situation, is going to go through his motion, throw the ball home. The catcher is going to get the ball immediately, get back up, throw it to second base, and there's going to be a play at second. If everything is perfect, the ball and the runner should get there almost approximately at the same time, which is insane to me. I love this quote by Bill James. If you could split him in two, you'd have two Hall of Famers. That's how good he was. My gosh. We talked about Barry Bonds being the all-time leader in walks. But a lot of Barry Bonds' walks were intentional, meaning the pitcher intentionally walked him. If you take away intentional walks, Rickey Henderson is the all-time leader in walks. If you just take away intentional walks, that's how patient he was as a leadoff hitter. Yeah. He also was the all-time leader in runs. No, I'm not saying he's better. He's just different. He is great. He is great. He is fantastic. I'm not making it a deciding factor here, but we'll kind of see how that goes. So, again, as I mentioned, my goal for today, number one, I want to go through some notes on stealing bases. I do have some videos to show you guys. And then at the end, for the last roughly 15 minutes or so, I need to finish our home run hitter debate because we need to finish that first round and second round. Yes, we do. So we will be doing that today. We have to because we got to get it done to move on to the next part. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would, I'm going to need those notebooks. Out and open. I got plenty of paper up there. I got notebooks in the cabinet. But definitely we need to draw out these diagrams and formulas and calculations today. Okay. Now I'm just going to title this Stealing a Base. Today is October the 1st. Congratulations, you are done with 10% of the school year. So some basics about a baseball diamond. I'm going to draw multiple diamonds in my notes today. Well, let me just draw this one to start. So we got a baseball diamond. And I'm only going to be focusing on stealing second base because stealing third base would be a different calculation because of the distance that the catcher has to throw the ball. So the runner typically is going to be traveling 90 feet between first and second. However, the runner does get a little bit of a lead, meaning he actually starts off covering some of that 90 feet. Do you know what the average lead is in baseball in terms of feet? It's more closer to 12, believe it or not. I know, it's crazy. I know, but it's closer to 12 feet. So that runner is standing right there, 12 feet off the bag. So he really has to cover 72 feet. He has to cover 72 feet. Now, a good base runner is going to wait for the pitcher. The pitcher begins his motion to throw a pitch. When the pitcher begins that motion, if everything goes right, the runner is going to begin running. A good runner in baseball, I'm not saying the fastest of all time, I'm saying a good runner. A good runner runs roughly 15 miles per hour. A good runner runs 15 miles an hour. Now, mind you, he's not going to run at 50 miles an hour immediately from the time he starts running. Let's just call that an average over the distance that he has to cover. So now the big question becomes, how long will it take him from the moment he begins running to the moment he reaches second base? How long will it take him to get to second base? Because we have to compare it to the pitcher in a moment. We have to do a bit of conversion here. We have to do a conversion. Now, this conversion, I'm going to caution you, this conversion is going to look intimidating at first, but I'm going to tell you that this conversion is pretty much the same for most of the calculations that you're going to do. So you will get used to it. You may have done these in science before. 15 miles per hour. How many feet are in 1 mile? $5,280. That's okay. But we got to convert it to feet because he's earning 72 feet. It just makes more sense to do it that way. Now, this type of conversion cancels out the word miles. We're going to do this calculation in a little bit, but it just cancels out the word miles. Then I got to go seconds. I really have to go towards seconds because running first to second base, you're not going to count that as hours or minutes or anything like that because it's only going to take a few seconds. So 1 hour is 60 minutes, which cancels out the word hour. And 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds, which cancels out the word minute. What are the only two words left over? Feet per second. It's going to be feet per second. If we do that calculation correctly, we will have successfully converted 15 miles an hour to feet per second. We need feet per second because of that 72 feet. Now, like I said, it is actually a fairly simple calculation. You just got to do whatever the miles per hour was, in this case 15, multiply it by 5280, divide by 60, divide by 60. And you can literally do that in one shot on the calculator. 15 times 5280 divided by 60 divided by 60. Literally, you could type it in exactly like that. Boom. 22 feet per second. 22 feet per second. See, now we're getting closer. Again, the question was, how long does it take a base runner to cover that 72 feet? 72 feet in 22 feet per second. I don't know what science you guys are all in. I really don't know what science class you're all taking right now. But do you know the distance formula? The dirt formula is what I like to call it.
What was 15 or 5,280
5,280 was the number of feet in 1 mile.
on the
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Oh, what I just calculated was this. Yeah. That's all I calculated. How do you calculate distance and time? You're thinking slope or rate of change. That's what you're thinking. You're thinking rate of change. That's okay. Again, I don't know what science you guys have all taken. I have no idea. I don't know if you learned this in physics. I don't know if you learned this in chemistry. I have no idea when you're supposed to be learning it. Well, let me show it to you now. What we need is the dirt formula. D equals RT. Distance equals rate times time. Distance equals rate times time. The reason why I need that is because the runner is running at a rate of 22 feet per second. And he's covering a distance of 72 feet. And if I set up this calculation correctly, distance is 72, rate is 22. If I divide that, somebody do that calculation for me and round it. The time it would take would be whatever you get with 72 divided by 22. 3 point what? I want more exact numbers. No. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Rounding to 2 decimals would be much more accurate. Are you sure you got the right number there? Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, you know what I did? I apologize. You don't have to erase much. Trust me. Check this out. I said how much was the lead? No. What did I say before? How much was the lead the runner has? I said 12. And I wanted to stick with 12. I apologize. Yes, it's actually 78 feet. That's my bad. I will take my lashes. Punishment. It's actually 78 feet. It doesn't change much. What it changes is down here. I apologize. You did have the correct number based on 72. But I wanted 78. It really should be 78 right there. It's just changing those two numbers. So what'd you get this time? Yes, and it does round up though, because the 545, right? Yeah. I needed to have that exact for what we're going to do for the pitcher in a little bit. So let's just take a step back right here. 3.55 seconds. I want you to think about this. 3.55 seconds. From the time he starts running to the time he gets to second base. I want you to think about this. Listen to this for a second. Get ready. Listen to this for a second. Ready? Let's start again. Ready, set. He runs. He slides. Now think about in that moment, the moment he starts, the moment he slides, the pitcher begins the motion, throws home, the catcher gets the ball, sets, and throws it back to second base. My question is, how long does it take for the ball to be thrown home and then thrown to second base? Will it beat 3.55 seconds? Oh, go ahead. Well, the thing is, think of it this way. I'm going to draw this on the board so you could visualize it. Where's my other marker? There it is. Cool. Let's visualize it like this. I'll have this on the board so I can get rid of this picture up here. And I'm going to draw something like this in my notes, but it's basically like, here's the runner, 12 feet off the bag. And the runner is running to second base. Now, the runner will not begin running until the pitcher begins his pitching motion. So the pitcher is going to begin the pitching motion, throw the pitch. It's going to get to home plate to the catcher, assuming the batter does not hit it or foul it off. And then the catcher is going to throw the ball as best he can to second base to try and get that runner. It seems like a lot, right?
So how long does it take for the pitcher?
Let's calculate it. Let's figure it out. Oh no, a trash can. Having such a deja vu feeling. Let's see what happens. Now, keep in mind, that's if everything goes perfectly. Mind you, the pitcher has to throw the ball on target. The catcher has to immediately react, throw the ball on target. If the ball is off by like a few inches up, or a few feet up, or a few feet to the side, or anything like that, then all of a sudden that time increases. So it depends.
Are we taking a catcher's off target into account here? Not really.
Yes, and I do have an average for you.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, I'm a Phillies fan. Not everyone's really into.
I gotcha. So let's try another one of these. Yep. Some people do know this. Do you know what the distance is between the pitching mound? Oh, you can't see it. My God, I'm sorry. It's frozen. Oh, like my heart.
Between the pitching mound and the
Pitching mound and home plate.
6 inches.
There you go. I'm going to put 60.5 for the sake of our argument. It's 60.5 feet, 60.5 feet from the pitching mound to home plate. We'll talk about velocity in a little bit. But then, and some people do know this off the top of their heads. Nope. It's not exactly double. Some people might think that, but it actually isn't. What's the distance between home and first? The total distance. 90. 90 feet here. And what's the distance between first and second? 90. And what is this angle? It's a right angle. Pythagorean theorem. In order to figure out the distance from home to second, you got to do a quick Pythagorean theorem. I know, right? It's almost like it's coming into play now. This would be 90 squared plus 90 squared equals c squared, which would give us 16,200 equals c squared, which if you square root that, C is approximately 127.28 feet. Not many people, if you don't follow baseball, a lot of people don't know that the pitching mound is not directly in the center of the diamond. A lot of people don't know that. It's just slightly off.
So now we have to find how fast the pitcher threw the ball.
I'm going to get there. Just bear with me for a moment. Because I'm so excited. This distance right here is 127.28. So again, think about that for a second. The runner is taking about 3.5 seconds. For the pitcher and the catcher, the ball has to travel the 60.5 feet this way, and then the 127.28 feet this way. Something like that, like 187 and change or something like that, right? Ooh, But the thing is, the pitcher and the catcher are not throwing at the same velocity, right? Aren't pitchers like typically throwing a lot faster than other people on the team? If the catcher could throw the same as the pitcher, why isn't the catcher pitching? Come on. Because the what? Yeah, maybe. Maybe kids can't catch the ball. You know who Jim Abbott was? Jim Abbott was a pitcher for the Team USA in the late 80s, and he pitched for the Angels and the Yankees in the 90s. The man in 1993 pitched a no-hitter for the New York Yankees in Yankee Stadium. It was fantastic. Jim Abbott only has one functioning arm. Yeah. One functioning arm.
Literally, so he can't.
He holds the ball with his good hand. He has like a nub on his other arm, and he just holds the glove like that. He throws the ball and then very quickly shoves the glove onto his hand.
Yeah. I mean,
The problem.
what year are we talking?
Early 90s.
All right, I'm gonna.
Here, watch. Oh,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's insane. Oh, Jim Abbott. I don't think I spelled it right. There we go. Nope, not video. Here we go. One-handed pitcher, no-hitter.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatic.
Look at that. See him?
Indians have not had a man pass first base.
That's good. There you go. So watch again. He's throwing it with his left hand. He's balancing the glove on his nub.
And the ground ball is short. Velarde. He did it. He did it. No hitter for Jim Velarde. He did it. He.
Oh, I was trying to get the nub. Hold on.
And the ground ball is short. Velarde. He did it.
Couldn't get it. But you see what I'm saying, though? It's insane. He pitched the no-hitter in the 90s. Like, yeah, with one hand. Anyway, back to this.
I mean, so it's against it.
Keep in mind, the Indians were decent in the early 90s to mid-90s. They made the World Series in 95. Anyway, back to this. So now, talking about what has to happen, because you were talking about the pop-up time for the catcher as well. Here's what we have to take into account. Some of these I'm going to give you. Some of these we're going to have to calculate. We have to take into account the pitching motion. We have to take into account the pitch, which in this case, let's just say it's a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Now, clearly, it's not always going to be a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Sometimes it's going to be 95. Sometimes it might be like a 70-mile-an-hour changeup. Who knows? But let's just say on average, it's a 90-mile-an-hour fastball for the sake of simplicity. Then the catcher has to throw, which is that pop-up thing you were talking about, how long it takes for him to go through his motion. And now I Googled this. A catcher, on average, throws 81.8 miles per hour. A catcher throws, on average, 81.8 miles per hour. A couple of these I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you pitching motion. The average pitching motion lasts about 0.8 seconds. And you were talking about the pop-up time and the catcher to kind of throw the ball to second. The average catcher pop-up time is 0.9 seconds. So we have to take into account the pitch and the catcher's throw. Now, here's the beauty. Do you remember that conversion formula we did earlier for what, 15 miles an hour? It's the exact same thing. For 90 miles an hour, let me zoom in right here. You can see it on my calculator. For 90 miles an hour, if you want to convert it to feet per second, you would do 5280, multiply by 5280, divide by 60, divide by 60. That is how many feet per second the pitcher is throwing. So let me make a little note for myself right here. The pitch is 132 feet per second. And again, that conversion formula from miles per hour to feet per second is the same exact thing every time. Now for the catcher, I'm going to have to do this calculation separately. I'd have to do the exact same thing, except I would use 81.8. Now the catcher is throwing. Now, for the sake of simplicity, let's just make this 120. 120 feet per second. Let me zoom back out. So the pitcher, or the pitch, is traveling at 132 feet per second. But we need time. Remember, what's that formula for distance? Rate times time. Distance equals rate times time. Distance equals rate times time. Now, if you can remember, distance equals rate times time. I'll write it over here. D equals RT. And you need to figure out what time is. You got to take the distance and divide it by the rate. If you want to figure out what time is, you got to take the distance and divide it by the rate. We have the rate for the pitcher. What's the distance the pitcher is throwing? Or, careful, it's 6 inches, which is actually half a foot. So you got to go 60.5 for the calculations. 60.5. I know the metric system, the English system is so messed up, but you got to go 60.5 feet divided by the rate. That is how long it takes for the pitch to reach home plate. That's how long. I'm going to round it 0.46. 0.46. You see what I wrote in red on the board? In red, I did time equals distance divided by rate. The distance is 60.5. The rate is 132. Now for the catcher, again, it's a very similar calculation. Distance divided by time. Now we have the distance, 127.78, divided by the rate. We're rounding it to 120. That's how long it takes the catcher. 1.06 seconds. He's throwing slower and he's throwing a farther distance. What do all 4 of those numbers add up to? The pitching motion, the pitch, the catcher's throw, the 81.8 mile an hour throw. Or I want to say catcher throw, I mean like the pop-up time, his motion as well. What do all 4 of those add up to? Ah, okay. When you said 22, I was like, what? And then you said 0.22. I see what you're saying now. Yeah, 3.22, right? Yeah. 3.22 seconds. The runner takes about 3.55 seconds. The ball to travel from the pitcher to the catcher to second base takes about 3.22 seconds. The difference clearly is 0.33. Now, again, I just want you to think about 0.33. You ready? Think about 0.33. Ready? Here we go. Start, stop. That's the difference. Do it again. Hold on. Stop. Reset. Here we go. Start, stop. That's 0.33. I know, right? But 0.33 is literally, that's it. That's the difference. Now, yes, if the pitcher is on target and if the catcher is on target, the ball should get there a fraction of a second before the runner. We're talking about professional players who have been practicing this pretty much all their lives. They're going to be on target for the most part. Now, I have a short video to show you from a ESPN thing called Sports Science. It does a lot of the same calculations. Except I tweaked it. I used their video a little bit, but I did something better. I don't agree with all of their calculations. For example, they said that the catcher throws at 90 miles an hour. I'm like, no catcher's throwing at 90 miles an hour. Are you kidding me? Come on. So I found an average on Google. It was great. It was fantastic. Let's just see what happens. Boop, boop, boop. And there it is.
Being stuck at home in the
Advertisement.
city is no day at the beach.
There we go.
To break down the split seconds involved, when a base runner tries to steal second, we recruited Red Sox catcher Jared Saltalamacchia.
I hate when a guy steals off me, period.
A base runner with a 12-foot leadoff can get from first to second, averaging more than 15 miles per hour, in 3.5 seconds. From the stretch, a typical pitcher's throwing motion takes 0.8 seconds. The average 91 mile per hour fastball reaches home in 0.45 seconds. It takes a catcher roughly 9/10 of a second to get off a throw. And if the ball leaves his hand at 90 miles per hour, it'll reach second base in roughly 1.1 seconds. That means from the pitcher's initial move home to the catcher's throw arriving at second, 3.25 seconds elapse. Beating a good base runner by only a quarter of a second. That's less time than it takes to snap your fingers. Our question is, what factors can give the runner or the catcher an edge? For the base runner, it's all about the jump. If he takes off only 0.05 of a second too soon, he can get picked off. 0.05 of a second too late, and he loses almost 2 feet on the base path. And for a catcher, it comes down to accuracy.
The main importance is an accurate throw. If you can't put the ball on the bag, then he's going to be safe every time.
For every foot the second baseman has to move his glove to apply the tag, the runner gains another 2 feet. That means from 128 feet away, the catcher's margin of error is roughly 1 degree. While stealing a base is spectacular, it's not always worth the risk. Studies that compare the potential loss versus gain of stealing a base have found that unless a player has a success rate greater than 75%, it's actually detrimental to the team to try it at all. For ESPN Sports Science, I'm John Brinkus.
Now, a couple things to that. Number one, he said 75% success rate. I've looked it up online. The actual number is closer to 2/3, 67%. If you're going to be a base stealer, you have to be successful roughly 67% of the time for it to make sense for your team to have an advantage to that. 67% of the time. Ricky Henderson's success rate was over 80%. The dude was insane. He was everything. You'll see. I have a video on him in a moment. Now, again, there is an assignment on Google Classroom for you. It is due next Friday. I expect the work to be written out on a separate piece of paper, but you have all of the formulas and calculations that you need in order to get that done based on the lesson that we've done today. You'll be able to do these calculations. Now, I wanted to show just, again, some of the statistics behind Ricky Henderson and how ridiculously good he was. I have another video for that in a moment. And then, like I said, for the remaining 10, 15 minutes, probably 15 minutes, I hope, we're going to try and knock out the rest of that home run derby thing. Or not home run derby, best home run hitter of all time thing. So be ready with your research for when I ask for the home run hitter stuff. But for now, I do have that Ricky Henderson video to show just how good he was. Let's see here.
Alex, today we're going to do a very special episode of Dorktown. This is the Ricky Henderson episode. And the special thing about this is, there's a lot of people who watch us who don't even watch sports, believe it or not. So you and I get to be the ones to tell them about Ricky Henderson. The honor of a lifetime. It's almost impossible to establish an unbreakable career record at this point in history. Baseball has just been around too long for that. Consider the all-time home run record of 762. Want to break it? Okay. First, you need to play at least 20 seasons. How likely is that? Well, in this 20-year span, 1,688 position players entered the major leagues. 16 of them ended up playing at least 20 seasons. So your odds of playing that long are less than 1%. Now that you've threaded that needle, the only thing you have to do next is hit 38 home runs in all 20 of those seasons. Do you realize how difficult that is to do even once? Let's stay in this same time span. Hitters played a total of 2,752 full seasons. 113 of them resulted in at least 38 home runs. That is about 4%. You have to make it to the top 4% every year for 20 years straight. Congratulations, you're still 3 short of breaking the record. You're gonna have to come back at like age 42 and hit 3 more, I'm sorry. That's what it would take just to break the record by 1. There is no such thing as shattering a record like this. That's never gonna happen. What does this have to do with Rickey Henderson? We'll get there. Here's the progression of the home run record throughout the entire history of baseball.
Now, the home run record, just as a side note, the home run record was pretty low in the first several decades. And then, well, the 100% is Barry Bonds. The 100% is 762. But the thing is, like, basically, where's the record at? It's like, well, the 100% is Barry Bonds. At the beginning, it's like whoever hit the first home run or something like that. But it was fairly slow at the beginning. And then all of a sudden in 1920, something happened. Something happened. The live ball era happened. And someone raised the graph this much. Who was that someone? No. It's Babe Ruth. It's Babe Ruth. Ricky Williams played football. Yeah.
In the 20s and 30s, Babe Ruth dragged the record to about 94% of what it is today. We've spent the last 80 years or so hacking away at the final 6% or so. That is generally how these records work, right? The hits record has barely moved since the Great Depression. Same with runs, same with RBI. The total bases mark hasn't moved since before I was born. It's very easy to look at this and conclude that we're very close to reaching the physical limits of how much a human being can do on a baseball diamond. That we've done the very best we can do. That with walks, we can see a bit of a revolution. Barry Bonds heaped a full 20% on the all-time walks record, decades after you're supposed to shatter a record like that. But the real revolution, perhaps the greatest one-man revolution we can find in baseball's record books, belongs to Rickey Henderson. The stolen base record had barely moved since the 19th century. Thousands of players shuffled in and out of the box scores. Only Lou Brock could even make the slightest dent. And then Rickey Henderson did that. A spike that dramatic just isn't supposed to happen at this point in baseball history. Too many players played for too many years for this to be happening. It's like drawing your name in a slab of concrete that was poured last month. But Rickey did it. Alex, we can't talk about Rickey Henderson without sharing some Rickey Henderson stories that may or may not be true. One of my favorites is it establishes that Rickey Henderson was kind of an alien. He didn't get a lot of things, not because he wasn't smart, because he was actually a genius, but he was just from another planet where like things like money don't exist. Case in point, one time his team was, their record books were way off. Like they had $1 million more than they thought they were going to have. And they eventually find out the root of the problem. They call Rickey Henderson. They're like, hey, that $1 million check that we wrote you, did you cash it? It turned out he did not. He put it on his wall. He framed it.
I wonder what they use in his planet to exchange for goods and services. When Rickey broke Ty Cobb's career runs record in 2001, that was about par for the course for a guy who was always in scoring position, who loved scoring position, who lived in scoring position. But to get in scoring position, one must first get on base. This was easy for Rickey. As one of just 32 humans in the history of planet Earth with membership to the 3,000 hit club, his bat got him aboard plenty. And when it didn't, his patience and discipline consistently did from the moment he entered the bigs, drawing 117 walks his first full year, the youngest player ever to walk that much in a season. The next step would be swiping second, which, well, we all know Rickey enjoyed standing at first base about as much as Bobby Cox enjoyed calm, pleasant discourse with umps. With all these walks and steals, it didn't take long to make history. Before he even blew out 25 candles, Henderson already had 3 different seasons in which he both drew 100 walks and stole 100 bases.
So I just want to point that out. A season in which you stole 100 bases and had 100 walks. How many people in the history of baseball would you say have done that? Well, they're saying Rickey Henderson definitely did it. So how many other people did it? Mm.
Since 1900, every other MLB player has combined to give us 0 of those 100 seasons. So as you might have guessed, for his overall career, the frequency with which he'd reach base and steal his way to more is unprecedented. Feels like we ought to take a look at MLB's all-time leaderboard for most times getting on via hit or walk with stolen bases thrown in too. We see that not only is Ricky King here, all the way at the top with over 6,600 of them, but only Ty Cobb, Pete Rose, and Barry Bonds are even in his ballpark. No one else is within 1,000. For perspective, in 2017, Joey Votto led the majors with 318 hits plus walks plus stolen bases. That means Eddie Collins, even with being top 5 on the all-time list, would still need to tack on nearly 3.5 MLB leading Votto seasons just to bridge the gap between he and Henderson.
Here's another one. Ricky played here in New York City for a while. He played for the Yankees. And upon getting a home here, he was so proud of his new condo. He was telling all his teammates about it. And he bragged that he could see the entire state building.
Come on, Ricky.
That's pretty good, right? Yeah, no, it's true. It's actually true. Y'all remember Stratego, that board game where you had to send your army to find your enemy's flag? The whole game hinged on the fact that you didn't know where the flag was. I remember there was a kid in my neighborhood who was so good at this game and so overconfident that he would always turn his flag around and say, here's a flag, try to get it. And he would still win. That was Ricky Henderson on the base paths, especially in 1982. That season, he had 225 stolen base opportunities. In other words, he was on either first or second, and the next base was open. He attempted 172 steals. So, in effect, if you were a pitcher who gave Ricky a chance to steal, he would do so about 3/4 of the time. Now, usually stolen bases rely on the element of surprise, right? But Ricky used the threat of a stolen base as a weapon, as if to say, I am going to steal. There is nothing you can do about it.
Matt, just like you were asking to what made him so good. There were 2 specific things that made him so good. Number 1, he always wanted to steal a base. Number 2, he perfected the art of the head first slide. Not many people do that, but that because it's dangerous. But he perfected the head first slide.
It seems reckless, but it's not reckless if you're good enough. He'd just steal until he got caught. This figure is just a little bit inflated because it doesn't account for the times Ricky stole multiple times in a single trip around the bases. In 1982 alone, there were 19 times in which he stole second and then turned around and stole third on the same trip on the base paths. Ricky was one of the most resourceful athletes I have ever seen. He was an expert at making something out of absolutely nothing. He demonstrated this masterfully on June 8, 1982 against the White Sox. In the 5th inning, he lucked into first thanks to an error by the third baseman. The guy behind him hit a single. Ricky managed to stretch himself all the way to third on that hit, which, by the way, is another of his talents. Going from first to third on a single is often pretty tough to do, but throughout his career, Ricky made it to third almost half the time. Anyway, right after that, Ricky steals home. Fast forward 2 innings later,
Stealing home is
Ricky gets hit by a pitch
difficult.
and sent to first base. Then he immediately steals second. Then he immediately steals third. From there, all it takes is a single to send him all the way home. Within 3 innings, Ricky Henderson had turned an error and a beanball into 7 bases. Ricky was an alchemist.
So he threw left-handed and he batted right-handed. Now, there have been over 800 players in the live ball era with at least 5,000 career plate appearances. He is the only one to do that.
Okay, throwing left-handed, I understand. But I don't understand how y'all right-handers do stuff right-handed. It's so weird. Whenever I watch you guys write, it's like, how do you even write right-handed? I don't get it.
What also makes Ricky's 1982 season so transcendent is how he stacked up within the context of the American League. Upon conclusion of that beautiful 3-steal game in Chicago, Ricky's total for the season had risen to 57, literally tripling any other AL player with no one else even at 20 yet. He could have just kicked his feet up right then in early June, gone on sabbatical for the rest of the year, and he still would have led his league in steals for the season, after taking the final 105 games off. Fast forward to near the end of the season, and before missing some time over the final couple weeks, Ricky woke up on the morning of September 12th with 124 steals. Cleveland was the lone AL team to have stolen that many. It was more than Baltimore, Boston, and Minnesota combined. Minnesota in particular is worth a deeper dive into how they stacked up against Ricky, because that's where it gets really weird. So at this point of the year, the Twins had completed 87% of their season. They were sitting there with a total of 32 stolen bases. At the same point in time, let's check how much Ricky Henderson had stolen just third base. And would you look at that? It's 33. That year, less than 1 out of 10 stolen bases were of third. And yet here we stood in mid-September with one man having stolen just that base more than an entire team had stolen any base. That is Ricky Henderson for you.
So I think what we've learned is we could go on a very long time about Ricky Henderson. It's really tough.
The other thing I wanted to show you before I do the baseball thing, I wanted to just show you this real quick. Look at this season by season thing. Here's Ricky Henderson leading the league in stolen bases almost every single year in the 1980s except for one. This 1 year is really low because of the strike shortened season. But check this out. So Ricky Henderson, after 1991, all of a sudden there are other stolen base people that came in. Kenny Lofton mainly being the one who did that. So in the late 90s, Ricky had already played like 20 years. In the late 90s, Ricky was already in his 40s. Yet randomly in 1998, he led the league in stolen bases again. He was 40 years old and he still did it. This is how insane this guy was. So stinking good. Anyway, let's talk about home run hitters. So, as I said, that assignment's there for you on Google Classroom to knock that out. It's due next week. Some problems on calculations and et cetera, et cetera. Dealing trades. But the other class, the Wednesday class, voted Barry Bonds over Willie Mays. It was actually pretty close. The class was kind of a split decision, but after the discussion, they voted Barry Bonds. So now we have to finish this first discussion. So last week, again, I wasn't here the week before to kind of give you that kind of intro and whatnot. Should be watching the live stream, but we do have two players right now that I want to very quickly kind of get through. Let's talk about Babe Ruth. Let's talk about Albert Pujols. I always spell it wrong. Tell me something about these players. Tell me anything about either one, because I had these names assigned to them, of course. Sure, tell me anything. Well, yes, I know. Come on, tell me something about them being a home run hitter or a power hitter. Now, that's interesting because, like, having that kind of batting average today means you're, like, one of the top in the league. And this is Babe Ruth, a guy who was, like, at least 50 pounds overweight and, like, literally was eating hot dogs and drinking beer between innings. And literally, I'm not even kidding you. Fun story about Babe Ruth. He was a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, as I mentioned. In the 1910s, he started a game. He gave up a walk to the first batter. And he was so mad at the umpire that he punched the umpire out. And he got ejected from the game. So a guy came in to finish the game for him. The runner on first base tried to steal second and was thrown out. The pitcher then retired the next 26 batters in a row. Unofficial, perfect game. Because Babe Ruth punched at an umpire. Anyway, keep going. What else you got? No, Babe Ruth got kicked out of the game, and the Red Sox still won. But anyway, what can you tell me about these guys? All right, so, not as good, but it's still kind of up there, 300 almost. What about home runs? I know Ruth hit 715. I have no idea how many home runs Pujols hit. 662. But you did say, what about Pujols? He's still playing. You don't know what's going to happen. What else can you tell me?
Pujols' career hits is 3,236.
So that many hits. I know Babe Ruth never hit 3,000, right?
Doesn't Pujols have like a career high?
For hits?
Like, who has career high?
Pete Rose. Yeah. Pete Rose, he was a player for the Cincinnati Reds and the Philadelphia Phillies during the 70s and the 80s. Eventually, he was banned from baseball for betting on games. Yeah, so he's the all-time hit leader, but he's not in the Hall of Fame.
You think he'll ever get a Hall of Fame?
I hope so.
What about Barry Bonds?
Tell me something else about Ruth or Pujols. We're gonna move it along. Ooh. 690 slugging. Now, slugging is definitely an indicator of home runs. What's Pujols' career slugging? Say again? 536? 46. I gotcha. Now, keep in mind, slugging is definitely an indicator of a home run hitter. On base percentage is more of an indicator of like getting on base, which is not really a home run hitter thing, which is why we probably shouldn't talk about OPS in regards to this, but slugging definitely. Okay. There's a lot of different things we could say. Definitely. No. Pujols is still playing. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen.
Taking the field, Pujols played at what's it called in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Most of his career.
Busch Stadium.
Yeah, Busch. What's it called? That's a pretty big stadium. So I mean, take that into account.
Yeah, and the old Yankee Stadium had a short right field, and Babe Ruth was left-handed. So that is something to take into account. Let's take it. We'll take the vote then. Again, how many are you? I can't even count right now. There are 7 of you, so we should have a consensus at some point. Because I'm not going to vote. How many people are going to be voting for Babe Ruth? Are you guys not voting for Babe Ruth? Okay. Babe Ruth? Okay. Albert Pujols? Okay. That's a Babe Ruth then. Pujols could prove something. You never know. All right. Let's talk about Ken Griffey. Hold on. Ken Griffey Jr. and Hank Aaron. Ken Griffey Jr. and Hank Aaron. Tell me something. 630? Griffey hit 630 home runs. 755. That is the number. That's a very famous number. One of the craziest stories that you'll ever hear. He was trying to break Babe Ruth's home run record, and he ended up the season with 713 or 714. He had either tied it or he was like one short. So he had to wait the entire off season in order to break the record. And during the off season, the dude received so many death threats because there were a lot of people mad that Hank Aaron was about to break this Babe Ruth home run record. And then when he finally did it, you should go look at the clip online. It's fantastic. When he finally did it, he's running around the bases. They were like so scared that people were going to attack him. These 2 guys ran onto the field and ran after Hank Aaron. And people were like, oh, everyone held their breath. And then they just wanted to congratulate him. And then they ran off the field. Yeah. That's crazy, I know. And then the announcer said at some point, he's just like, while he's running the bases, and he's just in awe of what's happening. Hank Aaron's mom runs onto the field and gives her a big hug. It was crazy. And the announcer said this line. He said, and look at this. It's a black man in the South receiving a standing ovation. I'm like, that's cool. Oh, that was in the 1970s. Yeah. I know. No one would say that today. But you got to keep in mind, 1970s, we were only like 10 years removed from Jim Crow. What else you got? Give me Griffey, Aaron, something. 538 slugging for Griffey. Man, Ken Griffey, the sweetest swing you will ever see in baseball. Just so fluid. Yeah. What about Hank Aaron? What was his slugging? What was Hank Aaron slugging? Point what? 550. Interesting. Now, here's the thing about Ken Griffey Jr. that I do know. Ken Griffey Jr., he was the player of the 90s. And then in the early 2000s, he got injured a lot. He went to Cincinnati, kind of lost his way a bit. 2,000 less plate appearances. 2,000 less at-bats. That's because he was injured a lot.
How many, do you know how many hits Ken Griffey had? I think Hank Aaron's one of the greatest. So I'm just going to say Hank
I'm saying Hank Aaron. I know he never hit 50 home runs in a season.
Yeah, and Griffey did it twice.
Griffey did it twice. Griffey, I think his highest was what, 58?
56, I think.
Okay, I was close.
And Griffey's peak, his 7-year peak, is a lot more home runs than Aaron did. Aaron was more consistent. But like a peak 7 years or so, Griffey had more power for when he was fully healthy.
Absolutely, man. If Griffey could stay healthy, man, there would be no question about Barry Bonds. Griffey would have hit 800.
The coolest thing I've ever seen is seeing Griffey and his dad go back to back.
I know. That's a great one. If you guys, I think it was the 1989 Seattle, Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. back-to-back in the lineup hit home runs. It's fantastic.
His dad did it before, so he had a lot of pressure too.
I know. So good.
That's a dream.
Like you and your dad playing.
I know.
Professional baseball.
I know, especially since he grew up with it, because Ken Griffey Sr. played for the Cincinnati Reds during the 1970s.
Oh yeah, that's so sick, bro. That's so awesome.
Okay. All right, we got to do this vote real quick. The thing I will say about Hank Aaron, though, consistency. Like you said, the dude played for over 20 years. He was rarely injured. He never hit over 50 home runs in a season, but he was consistent. 30 home runs, 40 home runs, 30 home runs, 40 home runs. It's great. Here's the vote. Griffey. Who's voting for Griffey? All right, how many people voting for Hank Aaron? Okay, 4-3. That's Hank Aaron. Now, real quick, we got to do this vote. We've already given all the information out. Yes, I have your information on the Google Drive. I need to take one more quick vote for Babe Ruth versus Hank Aaron. Now, again, these are two biggies right here. I will update the spreadsheet in a little bit, and I'll send you out your final assignment, because whoever you pick is going up against the other class's pick of Barry Bonds. Okay, how many people would say Ruth Aaron? How many people would say Babe Ruth? Hank Aaron? Oh, you changed your vote. All right, that's a Hank Aaron there. Yeah. Here's the cool thing about Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron, for all of his accolades, for all of his years in the league, for all of his amazing achievements, won World Series championship. He won it in it. I know, but he won it very early in his career, 1957, with the Milwaukee Braves. The only World Series he ever won. They were back in the World Series the following year, and they lost to the Yankees. Barry Bonds was in the World Series in 2002. I watched that entire series. That was one of the greatest World Series I've ever seen. 2002, Angels-Giants. Amazing. Giants had it. Angels took it over. They had something called the, I don't know if they still have it today, but they have something called the Rally Monkey. The Rally Monkey. They had these so first of all, they had these fit devices that they're like little plastic devices where when you hit them together, they make all sorts of noise. And then on the big screen, they called it the Rally Monkey. They put a picture or a video of a monkey going nuts, getting the crowd all hyped and stuff like that. It was the Rally Monkey.
Who won
I know.
last night? Brewers or Dodgers? Dodgers, 4-2.
Yeah, dude, Dodgers are going to win it all.
Yeah.
Dodgers are going to win it all. And my dad will be happy. All right, I want to sign off the stream.